Good morning. My name is Father Kevin Elbert. I'm the pastor of St. Luke Parish in Lakewood, Ohio, right along the shores of Lake Erie, born and raised in the Cleveland area. I'm one of those men who heard the call to the priesthood a little bit later in life. I spent time as an attorney. Before that, I owned and operated 2 martial arts schools. And in fact, during law school, I was engaged, but God had other plans for me, called me to a little different calling in life. And I'm really blessed and thrilled to be here talking with all of you this morning. I've been praying for you since I was asked to do this talk. It's important for me to really encourage you, know that the church loves you, that I love you. And you say, you don't know me, how can you love me? But love is a choice. It's laying your life down for another. And I'll get back into that in just a moment. And I specifically chose the spot I'm sitting here to give this talk because this is where we exchange the vows here at St. Luke Church and weddings. And we fortunately have many weddings here, a lot of young adults in the parish. And some priests I've heard in the past say, I'd rather do a funeral than a wedding. And I'm saddened to hear that because I really love to be able to share that very special day with young couples when they stand before God in the church and they make those so important promises. So we think about marriage and where it comes from, the ends of marriage. They come right from the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. And the first end of marriage, a procreative end, comes from the first creation story. God, of course, creates the world in 6 days. On the 7th day, he rests. And the pinnacle of that creation is us. And God says, I'm going to make man in my own image, male and female in my own image. And he gives us the first command in Scripture to human beings, be fertile and multiply. So that beautiful end of marriage, that procreative end of marriage. And then, of course, the second end of marriage comes from the second creation story, the story of Adam and Eve, and how God creates Adam and brings all these creatures to him, and none of them are a suitable partner. So finally, God puts Adam into a deep sleep, pulls that rib out, and builds up Eve. And what does Adam say? Fine, bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This is my equal. And those beautiful words, that's why man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. The unitive end of marriage, this idea that we enter into this marriage bond to grow with one another in intimacy. Beautiful ends of marriage are also, of course, the same ends of our sexual expression, always to be open to the gift of life and always to enter into the marital act with the idea of growing in intimacy with one another. Now, Catholic marriage has 2 ends, but we also have 4 pillars of Catholic marriage, and one of those mirrors the first end of marriage. So the 4 pillars of Catholic marriage, it's free, it's total, it's faithful, and it's fruitful. It's something we freely enter into. It's not somebody putting a shotgun to your head saying it's time to marry my daughter. It's not because of a pregnancy. This is a person you freely want to give your life to. The second one, which is very important for our discussion this morning, is total. This is a lifelong commitment. Not until it's just not fun anymore. It's a commitment we're making to one another because it's a commitment that's also made to God. I'm going to return to that shortly. And then fruitful, that is again openness to the gift of life. That mirrors that the first end of marriage. And then fidelity, faithfulness. It's a marriage between one man and one woman, and nobody else enters into that intimacy that a husband and wife enter into. I really love working with young couples and helping to prepare them for marriage. I am invited into that most intimate moment, a moment of great joy and great excitement as they prepare to give their lives for another person. I talk to them a lot about what does it mean? What's going to happen on that day when you stand before God in church and you exchange those vows? It's something important. It's a sacrament. It's a sacrament because God's involved there. And we're talking about making a promise. And that promise isn't just made to that person you're standing there with. That promise is made to God as well. And it's not a conditional promise. It's not, I promise to do that if you promise to do that. No, I make that promise to you because I'm making that promise to God at the same time. Certainly a marriage is much stronger and it's much more joy-filled and grace-filled if both of the couples keep that promise to the best of their ability to continue to lay their lives down for one another. In fact, I also tell the couples, when you exchange those marriage vows, all know basically what the marriage vows are. I say, if I had to summarize those vows, I would summarize it this way. I promise to lay my life down for you. I promise to lay my life down for you. And again, it's not a conditional promise, like I'm going to do it as long as you do it, but it's also not a one-time promise. That promise doesn't just take place on the day of the wedding when, again, they stand before God in the church and exchange those vows. That's a promise that's renewed each and every day of married life. To get up every morning and say once again, whether you say it out loud or not, I promise to lay my life down for you today. One of the other areas that I think young people today struggle with is the whole idea of love. And we hear about love all the time. Things like love is love. And this is a person I'm attracted to. And the Greeks have all kinds of different terms for love. They would talk about eros and agape. And I would just kind of break that down to God's love and our love. And God's love, God is the source of all love. We talk about human and divine love. And the thing about human love, it's a good thing. It comes from God. But human love is conditional. It always wants, needs, or expects something in return. On the other hand, divine love is absolutely unconditional. And it's something more than just a warm, fuzzy feeling. What is love to its greatest, to the core? What really is love? Certainly Christian love. It's a choice. It's a choice to lay your very life down for one another. And sometimes that choice doesn't feel good. Sometimes that choice involves a lot of struggle, and it's not the easiest choice to make. But again, it's a choice we make each and every day to once again lay our lives down for that person. Love's a choice. One of the examples I like to use for a person, I say, hey, you know what? If there's somebody ever opened a door for you and they didn't say thank you, I said, yeah. I said, well, does that bother you when they do that? Well, yeah, it kind of bothers me. I said, should it bother you? And this is where I try to make this distinction between unconditional love, this divine love, and human love. Because the human love in us says, well, wait a minute, I open the door for the person, I expect something in return. I expect that person to say thank you to me. Divine love, it doesn't matter. Because when you open a door for the person, you're doing it as an act of love, a choice to lay your life down for that person. It shouldn't matter if that person does anything in return. And that is a challenge, I think, that many of you find yourselves in the circumstances you are today. That you want to continue to lay your life down for that person. You understood when you stood before God in the church that you made a promise. You made a vow that I'm going to lay my life down for this person. And the challenge is that the other person's not doing the same. But I support you in living that promise that you made because, again, it's not a conditional promise. It's not conditioned on what they're doing or what they're saying. It's a promise you've made to God and to that person. And I know it's a struggle for many of you. And the idea of, this is a person that you were called to live your life, to give your life to. And sometimes it's so difficult, but when you hold on to that, the beauty of the sacrament, and knowing that God is bound together, that sacrament, He's going to continue to give you the grace that you need to live going forward in your life. And this beautiful idea of this intimacy that we have. And in these times where there's a separation of intimacy from your spouse, we could all live more deeply into the intimacy we have at Jesus Christ. So often people look at me as a priest and say, Father, how can you be happy? You're not having sex with anybody. And I say, because it's intimacy. It's not more sex that brings us joy and peace and happiness and fulfillment. It's more love. It's more intimacy that brings us this greater fulfillment in our lives. And as a priest, I have more intimacy than many married people do. Remember, intimacy is sharing a part of your life with another person. As a priest, I get to do that day in and day out. Every time I sit in that confessional and people share stuff with me, they won't share with another human being. Those moments of joy that I get to be part of when a baby's baptized or when a couple enters into that sacred bond of matrimony, those joyful times. But intimacy comes in difficult times as well. I'm invited to those moments when somebody's sick, when somebody has died, when a marriage is falling apart. I'm invited into those moments, and that truly is a beautiful intimacy. And even the idea of celibate priesthood, something so misunderstood today. I give my life for the people, and I have great intimacy because I know there's something greater. As beautiful and as amazing and incredible as a sacrament of marriage is, there's something that's even greater than that, and that's union with God. As a celibate priest, I have the opportunity to do that. The focus of my life is living in deeper intimacy with God each and every day. So I encourage you in this time of struggle, in this time of separation, don't give up. I would never encourage you to do that. Continue to love them. Continue to make that choice to lay your life down for them. But in these difficult times, you may feel a degree of loneliness. And at times, you may feel a time of separation. Remember that Jesus Christ is always there and desires to have a deep, intimate, personal relationship with each and every one of us. And when we have that intimacy, everything else is icing on the cake. I promise you my continued prayers for you as you continue through this retreat. May God bless you in every way possible. May you really experience the intimacy of Jesus Christ. God bless you and have a wonderful day.